Welcome in to Locked On Thunder Live, our first ever live stream here on Locked On Thunder. It's a brand new show, so this is going to be every Monday and Thursday, starting at 2 p.m. Central Time every single week, 2 times a week, taking you through what's been happening around the NBA, what's been happening with the Thunder. You'll have myself, Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder, with Derek Parker at DParkOK on social media, Derek-Parker on YouTube, OKC Dream Team, where both of us are over there. And as well, we're both at thunderonsi.com. So again, this is an addition to the normal show, just a fun way to have a more relaxed conversation about basketball and about whatever else we get into. We have some non-basketball stories already today to get into, but Derek, how you feeling today?
I'm good, man. We got our first inkling of preseason basketball today. We got to dip the foot in the water a little bit, watch some hoops, which is really exciting. We've got a 4:30 a.m. game tomorrow. I'll be up bright and early, as everybody else will, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm excited, dude.
Are you really going to be up at 4:30? Because I will, but I'm also a night owl.
I've considered it. Okay, because the only reason is that they're playing Melbourne. I forget I think it's the Pelicans is playing Melbourne, and a 2026 draftee. For those of you that don't know, I'm very into the NBA draft. A lot of my basketball work revolves around it, and a 2026 draftee by the name of Dash Daniels plays for Melbourne. So for the absolute sickos that want to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and watch a 2026 prospect play against an actual NBA team, it's there, it's waiting, and I might consider myself one of those sickos.
I hope I see you live tweeting at 4 a.m. because I will also have to be in tune with that because they play Melbourne again Saturday night for us, and that will be a part of Locked On NBA Game Night, where you can find me and Gavin Shaw breaking it down every single Saturday night. So we're all over the place, and this is the first time we've been together on a live show, first time we've ever done a live show, period, and we want your comments involved. We already have some comments rolling in. Please listen to Micah, give us some likes because it will help the algorithm. It will help us grow this live show. Appreciate the kind words from Chaz. Love that you've been a daily listener. Love that you're from across the pond, assuming you don't mean the University of Kentucky in that one. However, if you do mean the University of Kentucky, Mark Pope was at practice today. He was chatting it up with all the Kentucky Wildcats on this roster. Any thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, yeah really cool. I do like that the Thunder have doors open in that regard. You know, Porter Moser was there Monday, Mark Pope today. It's cool. I believe Mark Daignault said it's more of a collaboration than it is just these college coaches coming in and simply getting tips from Mark and the staff. So it's cool. It's always really cool to see these kind of high profile head coaches come in and chop it up with some NBA programs.
Yeah, and I think that Mark does a great job of doing this ever since he's became the head coach with the Thunder, and he brings in all kinds of coaches. I mean, the high-level guys like Porter, like Pope, of course, are there, but he's also brought in some Division II schools from around Oklahoma to come into practice, and he talks about learning from them as much as, you know, they're learning from him. He's learning from them because there are just different things that you can pick up on from these different levels of basketball. And Luke, we feel for you, brother. As an Oklahoma State fan, it's Thunder basketball season. It absolutely is, Luke. Lean all in to the Thunder. It's going to be a fun season, much more fun than what's happening in Stillwater, because Derek also runs Pokes on SI, so he knows all about the happenings up in Stillwater. But Derek, we do have some takeaways from training camp and from media day and Sam Presti's presser. It's a lot happening at once. We went from nothingness to like, boom, every day there's something else. What stood out to you the most this past week?
Yeah, I think like always, people are looking for new information at these things, and that's not always a thing, especially when you're covering a team that's coming off a championship. It's like, how was your offseason? Did you celebrate being the best basketball team on the planet? Of course they did. It was really fun. They got to take the trophy everywhere. It was business as usual, but I think the one thing people were wanting to know about is Topic. Nikola Topic, he missed his actual rookie season, obviously due to the ACL injury he suffered in the Euro League. So he's the big shiny new thing. And I think a lot of the both prior to camp comments and the current camp comments have been really good. I mean, people are glowing about things that we already know. He has great feel for the game. He's a really, really good passer. He's just very malleable in terms of lineup versatility, as Daignault touched on yesterday. You can play him off ball. You can play him on the ball. AJ Mitchell's glowed about him. Jay Will glowed about him. Cason Wallace has glowed about him. Mark Daigneault has had positive things. So Topic is probably the one thing people will want to know about heading into this preseason slate. How does he fare in these kind of quasi NBA games? So was looking out for those comments. I think he's been well received so far. So good stuff on that front.
Yeah, and Topic is going to be the most interesting thing to watch for the preseason, especially. And they have a weird preseason schedule. Mark's done this in the past too, where he wants to load up on the preseason. You can kind of put in a request with the NBA of how many games you want to play. There's a minimum number and a maximum number you can play. And the Thunder have always leaned toward that maximum number. I'm interested in Topic because of how he's being talked about. It's not just like that these guys are rallying around their teammate and saying, oh yeah, Topic looks good. Oh yeah, Topic is a good player. The depth of which they talk about, specifically him playing off the ball, is encouraging to me because I remain a skeptic. You don't want to let the conversation shape your opinion whenever you have actual basketball to lean on, and we're going to have basketball to lean on this upcoming week. But it is interesting though that the players have pointed that part out. Whenever they've never been directly asked about how he is off the ball. They on their own lead us to that answer of him playing better off the ball and him playing well off the ball. Mark talked about the new dynamic that it can create even with Shai, of having Shai play alongside a ball handler and a playmaker. And in some ways, that's fascinating too, because I mean, the fourth quarter he had in Indiana, Shai did, and the explosion that he did to save the season and not go down 3-1, which would have been a death sentence for this team. That largely happened off of the two-man game of J-Dub and Shai, where J-Dub was the one bringing the ball up the floor. Shai sets a screen, gets a good matchup, and goes to work on that side of things. So if he can lean more into playing some off the ball and getting better matchups than he even anticipated, that would be very fascinating for what Nikola Topic can bring. What are you expecting from Nikola Topic this season? What's your gauge heading into the preseason? We reserve the right to change our mind because, as any good journalist would do with more information, you can obviously change what you think. But as of right now, what are you expecting Topic to look like on this team?
Yeah, every time we have extended time away from watching Nikola Topic play, I feel like I get further away from him being like a huge part of this team. But then every time he steps on the court, there's just something about his play and the way that he can feel things out and his feel for the game and his passing ability that just like draws me back in. So as of right now, I feel like it's hard for me to envision him with like this major role or him grabbing the backup point guard role away from AJ Mitchell, given that AJ is really good at scoring, defending, playing off ball, probably a little more refined, just older at this point, more experienced than Topic. But I mean, give me 3 days. Let me see Topic get 30 minutes of preseason action where he has 7 dimes and him and Isaiah Joe have chemistry and him and Chet can get this kind of 2-man game thing going. And I don't know, man, there's just something about his play style and just his overall talent level that draws me in. So I'm between right now, as always. Like you said, I reserve my right to change my mind whenever I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to have the latest information and then shape your opinion around that. I think that's one of the worst things that people do in this industry is like clinging on to a narrative or a storyline or an idea that's no longer correct. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to change your opinion once you get more information. The other conversation about Topic that I find fascinating is people always comparing him to Josh Giddey. And that's just the trope that he's going to have to deal with for his entire time in Oklahoma City. It just is. And like it or not, that's going to be the conversation. But when you're comparing him to Josh Giddey, remember this. That trade was not made out of the Thunder saying, hey, we don't think Josh is a good player, or we don't think that Josh is not a fit here. That trade was really facilitated by the idea that Josh Giddey did not want to come off the bench and did not want to change his role. Now, I respect Josh Giddey for not wanting to do that. Let me be clear. And the contract year especially, you just saw it pay off for him, going to Chicago and playing with Billy Donovan, a guard whisperer, and playing in a more designed role tailored to his skill set. But the Thunder's plan was to try to see if this thing could work off the bench. And now you bring in Nikola Topic, who has no expectation, who has no starting spot granted to him like Josh Giddey did because of where the roster was at the time of drafting him. And you get to see what that vision would have been for Josh Giddey off the bench if you think that these are two of the same players. Now, I think that there are differences in both of their games that make that analogy fall apart a little bit. However, if you are tied to that analogy, we're going to see what the Thunder's plan was for Josh Giddey coming off the bench. I think that they're going to give him opportunity. I think that they're going to try to see just what Topic can do with this team. Not that they're going to sacrifice winning games or not prioritizing winning, but they're also going to understand that if they can find minutes for Topic, and if he's good, it will change how this team plays and better them for a championship. Because if Nikola Topic is good, Derek, what does that do for this team? If you envision a good season for Topic, that looks like help in the half-court offense. And what was the thing that made that Denver series go 7? What was the thing that made that Indiana series go 7? The only 2 series of which the Thunder truly had a bump in the road was because their half-court offense stalled. And if you can get Topic up to speed from now until the postseason, it can really change things. And there's other ways to change that too. We can go over some of those. But Topic is a very, very interesting kind of player for what this team can be, what this team can do. But I do want to take some comments real quick. Kenrich was not at media day because he had a knee scope, so he was not with the team, and he's going to be sidelined for about 6 weeks or so, at least. So just so you know, Kenrich's still around. He was just not at media day. That's why you haven't heard anything from him. But Derek, when I look at the media day takeaways, mine was Shea raving about Chet Holmgren. And this is not a surprise because Chet Holmgren is Chet Holmgren. Like, he's already considered a top 30 player in this league, according to our Locked On host who made our top 100. And he's already an elite level defender. I would consider, I don't know if you think this is a hot take, Derek, I would consider Chet already a top 3 defender in the league. Like, that's where I'm at with him. And so you can see the vision for what he can be offensively as he gets removed from that hip injury. And Chet saying stuff like, Shea saying stuff like Chet's mentality and work ethic and the rest of the world being forced to watch him blossom. That's different than just talking about a teammate in positive ways. Like, that's solidifying why we've all kind of discussed Chet Holmgren, at least you and I have. We've discussed Chet Holmgren as an inevitability of him being better, because it's so easy to bank on his work ethic and bank on his skill set to translate to a highly positive player. And I really like what we've seen from Chet throughout his career, especially when you consider the adversity that he's hit. But Derek, what is your expectation level for what Chet looks like this season and what Shea thinks he can be this season?
Yeah, if anybody in here has listened to me and Rizzy chop it up before, they know that I'm a big Chet fan. Every time I come on a show, I rave about how I think he's going to be an all-star this year, and I think he's going to offer MVP impact and yada, yada, yada. I agree with what you said. I think he's very easily in the top handful of defenders on the planet. I think that he is set to make some sort of offensive jump. I don't know if that comes in the form that people think it will. Like, I don't think he's probably going to be shooting turnaround mid-range fadeaways constantly and like looking like Kevin Durant out there, but can he refine what he's already good at in driving down the lane at 7 foot tall, doing work on the interior, shoring up outside shooting? Can he just tighten the screws a little bit? Yes. Can he get to around 20 points per game? Yes. Can he continue to offer that all-world defensive impact, keep himself in Defensive Player of the Year conversations with just how good this Thunder defense is? Yes. So, I mean, you keep checking these boxes, and at some point you're looking at, as you touched on, a top 30 player, top 25 player, a player who is contending for all-stars, third team All-NBA, second team All-NBA, MVP at some point. So I think that last one's probably a little further down the road, but yeah, I'm right there with you and what seems like the rest of the Thunder team, in that Chet Holmgren has a pretty monster year ahead of him. As Mark said, he has a great track record of capitalizing on off seasons. And I think this year will be one that, if he can stay healthy, he's going to have a big year.
I really think that when you look at Chet, this is a guy that could shoot 40% from 3 on good volume. And with that, just bends the defense in a certain way where you're flying out to contest him more. And you saw before the hip injury, him playing really well off the catch and getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line. That stuff changes the Thunder's offense. And it really takes some pressures off of Shea, off of J-Dub, and allows the Thunder to be more fleshed out, well-rounded team. And so running it back does not look like this team trying to tie themselves to last year's team and last year's success. But it does look like them continuing to evolve and grow, and Chet's a big part of that. I think that he also can show more playmaking than he has to this point with a new role and with a new skill set of that running him off the 3-point line can open up passes for others. So what's another thing that stood out to you so far about this week?
Jay Will, you know, another new thing I would say, again, most people, it was business as usual. We know what they did over the offseason. We know these players' games, but one actual change was Jay Will has slimmed down. And I noticed it before someone said it in the presser room. I was like, he looks skinny, like not like lost some weight, like legitimately skinnier. And then he confirmed it over the last few days of practice and said he was feeling better on court, which I think is a great sign. I think overall it was an effort to stay healthier. You know, he's dealt with a few things here and there over the last few seasons, nothing major, but just tweaks that have kind of sidelined him here and there. So I think he's slimmed down in an effort to stay on court more. But I also wonder what this actually means for his game. Like, as we saw in the postseason, he was kind of a guy who relied on that physicality. You know, he was chesting up Jokic and he guards these kind of bigger guards whenever he's on the court with Chet. I'm curious if they're almost going to use him more as like a, almost kind of a playmaking small forward. Like, could we legitimately see him slimmed down playing with Hartenstein, with Holmgren, like the three of them at once? I don't think it's completely out of the question. I really don't. He has that kind of wing style game. He can shoot threes. He's a hub-esque playmaker. He said he's getting more comfortable putting the ball on the floor. It's something to watch for, man. It really is.
Look, Derek, this is
triple big.
That's your first technical foul of the season, Derek, and you have the right to get this tech rescinded. But playing the three, I would agree with Fierce that he could play the four, and I think that him slowing down. He talked about it helping his injuries. He talked about how it's helped him play off the catch more offensively, making him more than just a two-dimensional offensive player, where he's really good as a passer, really good as a shooter, but with that really good shot making from three, teams are going to be reacting to him differently. He's going to need to be able to put the ball on the floor and create lanes for himself to both score at the rim and also go deeper into his playmaking aspect of things. But defensively, this is a guy who's quietly gotten a lot better each and every year as a defender. If he's slimmer now, and he can get another tick better and become an average, above average defender. And with that, he can play in more than just a certain matchup. Like last year, you look at the postseason, he was a key cog in that Denver series win. He was incredible defending Nikola Jokic and incredible in that series. But there was just not a ton of matchups left for him whenever you got to play Indiana and Minnesota and Memphis. And it was just that matchup. And the bigger teams in the NBA, sure, you can see Jay Will playing against Dallas and Houston and Cleveland, and you saw his ability to play against Denver as well. But if he can make himself to where it's not matchup dependent, and that his defense, especially as a drop coverage big, which I expect them to really only use him as a drop coverage big, if his defense can get even more improved this season, and his game can diversify. And now you want to play him nightly because you've got him under contract and he's improved his game. It also opens things up for the rest of the roster. There's a trickle-down effect to that because you can now lean fully into the double big lineups for longer stretches because you're not so worried about having to pull someone off the floor 3-4 minutes into a game because you need to stagger Chet and Hartenstein and ensure that you're blanketed with center protection all throughout the game. If you have him as a true, legit fixture of your rotation, you can play the double bigs more and then lean on him as your true backup center. And that also trickles down to next summer when we're going to be discussing what to do with Hartenstein. What if he makes such great strides that it makes that decision any easier? So I'm very curious what Joe looks like. I think that this is a great storyline to watch. But you did get a technical foul for saying he could play the three. And again, I will rescind the tech. I'm like the league office here. If we see a triple big lineup, I will rescind the tech. But you're one tech in on the first show.
I'm not saying it's going to be some given that they rolled this out daily. Of course not. Like personnel wise, it doesn't make sense. But we've seen them run 5 guard a decent bit. Is it so crazy to think in a matchup that they have 5 guards and they use that a lot of the game that we don't get an inkling of triple big? Give me some trip big, dude.
I will say last preseason, to give you even more credit behind your name, we were talking about the starting lineups, and including myself, was fascinated by starting Kaysen. I mean, it was starting Caruso. and even the double big lineups as well. And you were the lone holdout of like, don't count off Isaiah Joe. And whenever they were into those injuries, like he was the guy they kept turning to. Isaiah Joe was. So you kind of called that there. Maybe you've called this one as well. But I am very curious what Shaywa looks like. Risky B says, can Rylan sing again this year? I promise Derek knows there's going to be singing at times. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at times throughout this season, there'll be singing involved. But I do want to talk about Isaiah Joe that as another standout, because he discussed the chemistry with the bigs. I asked him yesterday about playing off of Hartenstein, because this was a topic that crept in all season long last year about the different shots he was getting and how that really slowed down his percentages in the first half of the season. And then he, of course, picked it back up in the second half. But those differences kind of threw off the game a little bit for him. And now you're playing with who we expect to be an improved Jay Will, so more playmaking from the big position. And we just went over how we're expecting Chet to be a better playmaker. And we know what Isaiah Hartenstein provides. And he mentions how he has great chemistry with all of them. And they've just picked up right where they left off, and they're getting more I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it seems like they're getting more chemistry and continuity and competitively getting him more movement threes. And that's going to be a big deal to up his level of play. If you can get Isaiah Joe more high quality 3-point looks than just the stationary catch and shoot stuff, because we've seen it time and time again. The stationary catch and shoot threes are great, and he knocks them down consistently, and he deserves credit for that. Those go away quickly in the playoffs, and those go away quickly in intense games. But if he grows the chemistry with iHeart, that turns him more so into like a Dante DiVincenzo whenever he was playing with iHeart, and you just are put in a bind of how to shut him down, because he's always moving, he's always relocating. iHeart's finding him, iHeart's setting him just these wipe away dribble handoff screens. Then that's another player who looks way different than he did a year ago, and I think that would be big for OKC.
Yeah, I think another kind of underlying storyline with this team winning the championship is just simple confidence. You know, there were guys throughout the postseason that didn't necessarily shoot well that probably should have. I think Joe was one. I think Kaysen could have been added to that conversation. And now that they've actually been there, done that, you know, this is still the 6th youngest team in the league. But now that they've actually been there, done that, maybe their confidence comes around and they're actually better positioned this year to shoot even better, to play even better offense, to add to their game. So I think that's just kind of an underlying storyline. Maybe Isaiah Joe doesn't necessarily add a ton to his game. Maybe he's not like curling off these screens with fury and adding all these different wrinkles to his 3-point versatility, but maybe he's just simply more confident. Like, we've already been to the mountaintop and done that. I can make these threes. I can hit these shots in the clutch time and in the crunch time. So I think that's just a small point about some of these guys, and that applies to a bunch of them, but a pretty important one.
Yeah, it's important because this team last year won the championship while being 13th out of 16 teams in the playoffs shooting the ball from three. And that's just not sustainable. It's just not. And it was a great run. It was a great championship, and you can never take that away from them. But they're going to have to improve from three. And Isaiah Joe is, of course, the biggest piece of that. And what he's done is he's already accomplished the work to stay on the floor defensively. He really competes on that end. And with the talent you surround him with, he can be on that end of the floor in big moments, in big games, in big spots. So that part of his game has already changed. The 3-point shot changing would unlock a whole new dimension for this rotation. But there's more takeaways to get to, Derek, and you have one.
Can I throw out a technical foul real quick?
Sure.
I'm looking at this is just a stream that's up following the first preseason game of the year. Ben Taylor's projected Dallas Mavericks starting lineup. Yep. Point guard, D'Lo Russell. Shooting guard, Klay Thompson. Mm-hmm. Small forward, PJ Washington. Power forward, Anthony Davis. Center, Derek Lively. No Cooper flag in the starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks would warrant a technical foul. Now, I don't know if that needs to go to Ben Taylor for even guessing this, or if this needs to go to Dallas for actually doing it, but someone's getting a tech if C flag.
You know what, Ben Taylor, we've seen enough. You're ejected. Ben Taylor's ejected. He's ejected for the whole show. We're no longer going to talk Ben Taylor on this show until he repents for that decision. Speaking of Cooper flag, we're going to be in Dallas Monday. Second night of back-to-back for the Thunder. However, first preseason game for Dallas, and they're playing in Fort Worth instead of in Dallas, which I mistakenly thought that was the same thing. because I don't like Texas. I don't enthrall myself in Texas history, because without Tennessee, there would be no Texas history, by the way. Don't ever forget that. Davy Crockett and them boys. But they are playing in Fort Worth for whatever that's worth, which I guess in Dallas means it's 50 miles away. Cooper Flagg should play Monday. We're going to get an up-close personal look at Cooper Flagg. And the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a team to watch this season, as we're going to break down our teams to watch. But, Derek, the last takeaway that we had was about this team's identity. What about this team's identity is heading in the right direction that you and I both agree with?
Yeah, I think they're just in a good place mentally. I think a lot of times teams that do win the championship can come back next year, and most of the time, firstly, they don't have the level of chemistry and continuity that this team brings back. So that's the first point. But secondly, they might not have the right mentality in terms of defending their title or just moving forward as kind of the top dog, the one to take down the target in the NBA. And I think this year's media day, Thunder Media Day, just kind of proved that OKC isn't one of those teams. Like, they absolutely have the right mentality in that they treated it as business as usual. You made this comment on Dream Team, and I really liked it. If you put the transcript from 2024 Media Day and 2025 Media Day up and just cut out all of the championship questions, you wouldn't be able to tell which is which. And I think that's a great portrayal of just the fact that this team is still locked in. They still know what has to be done. Now, is it going to come in a little bit different package this year? Sure, but they're moving forward as largely the same team, both roster-wise and mentally, which I think is as much as you can ask for moving into a new NBA season.
A new NBA season, and I do think that the fact that they've stayed consistent with their messaging is a good thing. Now, is it a good thing for us? Honestly, no. But it's not approaching it from our standpoint. It's approaching it from their standpoint. You would not want this team to win a championship and then come back and be entirely different people. Just entirely different answers, entirely different personalities. Like, J-Dub made the same jokes that he makes with the media for whatever you think that those are worth. And everyone else remained the exact same that they were previously. So you want that same mentality. And all of them discussed the understanding that they're going to have to get better and they're going to have to change. And Caruso went as far as to say that it'd be naive to think that you can just do exactly what you did last year and win a championship. And that's hard to grasp for any team, because there is so much ego and hubris that goes into being on the mountaintop and being a team that won a championship and is now picked again to win the title this season. And if you go to certain pockets of the internet, they are projected to be the next dynasty in the NBA and ruin what's been a parity era in this league for the first time ever. And you can kind of take the summer and be like, yeah, y'all are catching up to us. But from top down, from Sam to Mark to the players, they've talked about how they need to almost reinvent themselves every single year, which is true. You cannot keep doing the same thing over and over again. This is a copycat league. They're going to find ways to stop you throughout it. So I really appreciate the mentality that this team has. Derek, coming up, we're going to have our teams we are most interested in watching, who is must-watch theater in the NBA. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder live show. This is going to be every Monday and Thursday all throughout the year with Derek Parker and myself, Rylan Stiles, for you every single Monday and Thursday, in addition to the 5-day-a-week, 30-minute Lockdown Thunder show and every single post-game recap. This is just more content coming at you where we can get you involved in the comments, like so many of you have already jumped in and left some comments here. But Derek, I wanted to talk about the teams that you're most interested in watching. We had our first preseason game this afternoon, and now the floodgates open. It's preseason from here on out, regular season at the end of the month, and then we're back into the grind of an 82-game season. So who is the team that you can't wait to watch? And this is not about contention status. This is not about anything other than teams that we're going to enjoy following and sitting down and watching this year.
Well, it's certainly not about contention status, because my first team is the Charlotte Hornets, baby. Led by LaMelo Ball. I agree with Karam there. Pistons are going to be so fun. Hornets led by LaMelo Ball, as we all know, hasn't been able to stay healthy, but when on court, I think LaMelo Ball is a pretty dang good basketball player. He's had 40-plus win seasons with the Hornets before. You've obviously got Brandon Miller, a rising star in this league. I really think, again, if he can stay healthy, he's set to really expand on his game. And then my favorite addition would be Con Knipple. He was, for a very long time, one of my favorite players in the 25 draft until basically he caught the steam and everyone caught on that he is as good as he is. He went on to win Summer League MVP. He's that dude. I think he is set to probably frequent the starting lineup, really add a connective punch to that team in terms of his shooting. He's going to shoot the lights out of the basketball as always. He's got kind of some on-ball funk in terms of the pick and roll. He's stingy on defense. He's just a really, really good player. And then I think the rest of these pieces, Bridges, Plumlee in the starting lineup, sure, throw it out of the way. Trey Mann, Colin Sexton, Grant Williams, Salone could still get better. McNeely really, really showed some fun stuff in Summer League. KJ Simpson was one of my guys in the 24 draft. I just think they're a fun squad. And I really think that they're going to play a lot better than people think this year. You know, Tankathon has them, I believe, at like 4th to last, projects them to get the 4th pick in next year's draft. I would be nonplussed. I would be befuddled if they were that bad again. I know that that's a crazy take, seeing as they have been that bad for the past half decade, but I really, really think the Hornets are going to play better basketball this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Hornets, and health is a big deal for them, as it has been with LaMelo and Miller and those guys that they have. But this is the first summer where I look back and I think, you know what? The Hornets had a good offseason. They had a really good offseason for what they're trying to accomplish. Now, when it comes to winning games, their front court rotation is set up that of a tanking team. I'm not calling them a tanking team yet. I'm just saying that their front court rotation is that of a tanking team. So I don't know how many games they can pull off and win. And the reason why they're on your list is not just because they're really fun, but it's because I have the 76ers as my number one team that I'm most interested in watching. And on Dream Team, we made a bet that whoever has more wins, my Sixers or your Hornets, the other one has to watch movies that they're not interested in. You have to watch an Elvis movie or two. I have to watch Star Wars for the first time ever. Never seen Star Wars. I've never been interested in Star Wars. I don't think it's going to be very fun, but I'm willing to do it if my Sixers let me down again. And to have this information, and I know some of you in the chat already do, because I see a long time listeners in here. This show began in May of 2020. Bad time to start a basketball show, if you didn't know. But since May of 2020, I've never picked Philadelphia to finish outside of the top 3 in the East. I've been all in on these Sixers, and they've let me down every single year. And you know what, Derek? I'm back. I'm back on the Sixers. I'm ready to go with Philadelphia. Now, you're going to have to see where I predict them as we do our standings previews later on Lockdown Live. But I'm in on the Sixers being better than the Hornets. I'm in on the Sixers being a playoff team. I'm in on the Sixers.
You meant 3rd in the East
again. No, I'm not back in there yet. Back in there yet.
Okay. You were about to get teched up for top.
Yeah, that would have been a T. That would have been a T. We might have had to cancel the show if I was back in that far already. But luckily we don't. But I look at this team. And my guy Joel Embiid, Rock Chalk, Paul George. Is this the year that Paul George has the Gap Band washed, outstanding mixtape, or can he reinvent himself? Is this the year where my guys, Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain, who I love, they're my guys, sans only to Jalen Green, who will pop up on this show later. They're going to take that next step, and I know McCain is already dealing with injuries, because of course he is, because it's Philadelphia. But I like the 76ers. I've relapsed into the 76ers, as Fierce points out. I'm an addict. And the first step to changing is admitting it. I love the Sixers. I love watching the Sixers. I love when the Sixers win and they play that song, and I sing the song every single Sixers win. I'm a Sixer at this point, and I'm not changing right now. Now, I will say, though, as Derek and God is my witness, if they once again fail to make the postseason, see, I'm giving them so much room here. Postseason. That means they got to be top 10 in the worst conference we've ever seen. If they fail to be top 10 in the worst conference we've ever seen, I will officially disown the Sixers. I will officially no longer talk about the Sixers, hype up the Sixers, believe in the Sixers, but that day is not today. They get one more chance. And Derek, I'm ready to be hurt again by the Philadelphia 76ers.
I agree with this sentiment. I've got their depth chart pulled up. Tyrese Maxey, great. Quentin Grimes, great. Edgecombe, one of my favorite players in the draft. Paul George, Joel Embiid. Even the secondary unit here, Kyle Lowry, Eric Gordon, Oubre, Justin Edwards, I like. Adem Bona. It's a good squad. There's a lot of red on this depth chart already. Quentin Grimes, DD. Paul George, DD. Joel Embiid, DD. Jared McCain out. It's happening already. It happened last season. This is essentially the same roster minus Edgecombe. I just don't think they can stay healthy. I really don't. I don't think Joel's probably built to last a season anymore. Is he still going to put up MVP play when he's on court? Yes. Same with Paul George, but I don't know, man. It's hard for me to hitch my wagon to this 76ers squad. I do think they'll be fun. Now, to your point, this whole segment is what is fun. They're going to be a really fun basketball team, but are they going to be good? Top 3 in the East? Nah.
They're not going to be top 3 in the East. And I'm not going to predict them top 3 in the East. At least I don't think so. We haven't done our show yet. But as of right now, I'm not going to pick them top 3 in the East. However, they will be a postseason team, and I will win that bet. And we're going to be watching Elvis movies live on Patreon for OKC Dream Team. But, Derek, what's your next team that you're most excited to watch this year?
I've got the Rockets, and it comes with a caveat, obviously, with Fred VanVleet having been injured. But I first want to say that I think the Rockets, prior to the VanVleet injury, were the second best team in basketball. I think, oddly enough, they were really close to the Thunder, simply talent-wise. Like, if you just go 1A, 1B down the list, I think they stack up really, really well. Now, they don't have, again, the continuity, the chemistry. They haven't proven it. They're young. They're essentially a step behind the Thunder in every way, but really, really freaking good basketball team, truly. To my money, maybe the deepest team in the league. Now, Thunder, obviously, way more top heavy and deep, so like double whammy there, but I just can't glow enough about this Rockets roster. And even with Fred VanVleet out, I think it expedites Amen Thompson a little bit. He's going to get the ball. They're going to be able to try out this jumbo lineup. Şengün's going to get to initiate offense more. Kevin Durant's going to get to do his thing. Reed Shepherd, I wouldn't anticipate to really be thrust into like a VanVleet-esque role, but I think he'll be relied on more than he was previously in terms of playing some defense, maybe making plays here and there, shooting the ball. I think VanVleet was an underrated three-point shooter on this roster specifically. So I just think they're really, really good. And while the VanVleet injury hurts them, I still think they're going to be a pretty dang good basketball team. Are they going to be the second best or of the elite anymore? I don't know. And they probably won't be this year. But moving forward, if Thompson can develop further, if Shepherd can develop further, if this roster can get some continuity as is right now, and then maybe even add VanVleet back to the fold next year, I think look out for the Houston Rockets, man.
Watch out for those pesky Rockets. So I agree with you. I mean, this is obviously most exciting, most fun teams that we're engaged with throughout the regular season. And last year, with all the flaws and all of the things you could point to say Houston's not a true contender, even though they were the second seed in the West. In the regular season, they were fun to watch. They played great defense. They won games. I expect them to do the same thing this year. They're going to play great defense. They're going to win a lot of games. I think they're still, even without Fred VanVleet, going to finish top 3 in the West. And I think that when you look at the Rockets, it's almost, you have to separate the two. When it comes to the regular season, this is going to be a great team. When it comes to the playoffs, this team has a ton of flaws that will be exposed, and that I no longer believe that they can beat Denver and OKC. And that still leaves a lot of room, though, for them to win a playoff series. And depending on how the bracket shakes out, maybe 2 playoff series. If you see Denver, for example, go to the 4-5 game again, and Houston be on that opposite side of the bracket. But their championship ability has really declined with this VanVleet injury as of today. They need to figure out ways financially to make this work. But if you just look at asset wise, they have some things down the pipe asset wise to make some trade deadline deals to improve their guard rotation. And they also are banking on development from Amon Thompson, development from Reed Shepherd, who is your guy. You love Reed Shepherd, so of course you want to watch Reed Shepherd. So I'm very curious how the Rockets look. They're going to be a team that we're going to have to pay attention to. I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns. They don't have a point guard. They're going to lean on Devin Booker and Jalen Green to be a point guard. I love Jalen Green. Whenever we did our Lockdown Thunder prospect profile on Jalen Green, I dubbed him as a future multi-time scoring champion. Hasn't happened yet. I don't think it'll happen anymore. That's an opinion I've been wrong about and I've had to change. But I do think that Jalen Green will be more efficient this year, and he'll average 25 points a game this year. And
talk about a relapse.
Yeah, again, I am nothing if not consistent, as Kay knows that I just love the Suns. But I called the Suns a dark horse last year. It didn't pan out. But I've also been talking about Jalen Green in the sense of it was just a bad fit in Houston once they built out that roster. It was you look at what he was doing without Şengün on the floor. He looked much better. Now there's no Şengün down there. I still want to watch Jalen Green. And again, this is not about contention. This is not about them being good teams. But I think if you sit down for the nightcap of the NBA, let's say the Thunder on the East Coast, and it's like it's 10 p.m. and you're looking for something to watch and you're wondering where your kids are. That's a throwback to a 80s commercial that nobody understands. You're going to want to turn on the Suns and see. that's on me. I got caught in the air with the where are your kids? Yeah. That's on me. That's on me. But you're going to want to watch the Suns and see the bucket getting of a Devin Booker. See the bucket getting of a Jalen Green. See Malawatch. This is a fun team. They sneakily went from like a terrible front court to a nice front court in one off season, perhaps a too loaded front court in one off season. Dylan Brooks, like him or hate him, he is interesting. You can't take that away from him. He does antics. He does things that create interesting basketball games and interesting basketball moments. So I'm going to be watching the Phoenix Suns, and perhaps I'll be alone. Perhaps the only people watching the Phoenix Suns will be myself and Ben Garcia of Locked On Suns. But dang it, I'm going to be watching the Phoenix Suns.
I don't think I could disagree more if I wanted to. I think if I listed all 30 teams,
and they were my number 2,
the Suns would be bottom 5. No discredit to this roster. I think when I actually pull up the depth
hold
chart,
on now. It has to be a discredit to this roster.
Well, hear me out.
If you don't want to watch them, you're saying collectively you guys aren't worth watching.
When I look at the actual depth chart, it is a little better than I anticipated thinking. Like, Devin Booker is one of the best players in the world, point blank. He's going to be playing out of position, but he's still that. Jalen Green is a serviceable starter. Is he going to impact winning basketball? No. They have Royce O'Neal starting. Do we think that's the case?
I don't know. I don't think so.
And then they've got Dylan Brooks, power forward, Mark Williams, center, and he's got a big old red O next to his name, just so you know. So
Mark Williams lives with a big O next to him. Out. He's out every game. But if he ever did play, and if he ever did put it together, he's a good little ball player.
I just can't rationalize what this team wants or is doing. And they don't have an option because they've mortgaged their entire future to build a team that doesn't exist anymore. So they can't really do it through the draft. They can't win games with this product. It's not going to happen. You're playing 3 shooting guards, 2 of which are pretty fairly unproven in terms of winning real, tangible basketball games. I don't know. They don't have any young prospects that I'm like knocking down the door to watch. Malawatch is fun. Is he going to get drastically outshone by Mark Williams this year? Is he going to be able to hang in there physicality wise this year? Maybe. I don't know. You are certainly going to be alone in watching Phoenix Suns basketball games this year. I'd rather watch the Nets, who have they're going to be playing five rookies at a time.
Just stop.
I'd rather watch Nolan Traore and Ben Surratt.
5 terrible rookies.
Nah, dude. Yegor Demon, Nolan Traore, that's more fun to me than watching Royce O'Neal get passes from Devin Booker, point Devin Booker. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't care.
The Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I'm not going to tee you up because this is not worth fighting over, but the Brooklyn Nets over the Phoenix Suns.
They're not going to be better. Of course they're not. But like, they're a tanking team. It's going to be fun to like envision, okay, Cameron Boozer.
Envision, okay, all these guys suck. That's what you're going to envision. Danny Wolf sucks. Demon sucks. The rest of them suck. Cam Thomas sucks. Cam Thomas wishes he was Jalen Green.
I mean, what's the difference? I'm seeing double over here.
Jalen Green has more aura.
Aura? Does he?
Yes. Are you kidding me? Jalen Green lives on aura. You see Cam Thomas in a Wingstop commercial anytime soon?
He's got to live on something.
He lives on a lot of things, but we won't talk about that. Who's your next team to watch, Mr. Tough Guy?
My next team is going to be the Spurs.
Oh, way to go out on a limb. Oh, I want to watch the Spurs. I want to watch Wemby. Go ahead.
I mean, not everybody wants to sit down and watch Phoenix here. I think the Spurs are very much in that vein that the Thunder were pre-ascension, where everybody's just waiting on them to jump to like a 45 plus, a 50 plus win team. Obviously, Wemby is like the coming of Christ for the NBA right now. Like he is eventually going to be the best player in the world. It could be this season. It might be a few seasons from now, but there's simply going to be a point where the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama, with a healthy Victor Wembanyama, just refuse to win less than 50 games. Like it's going to happen. He is just going to get to the point where he is at that Giannis level, that Jokic level, not like in terms of stylistically, but just he is that big of a driving force that his team can't help but win games. And when you couple that with the fact that really well-run organization, they just landed Dylan Harper despite having De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle. They've got some really fun veteran pieces. I think they're going to be a good basketball team next season. They've got one of the most fun players on the planet to watch. They've got one of the most fun rookies to watch. I mean, they're just going to be must-see TV nightly, and that's going to be the case this season, but especially moving forward.
I totally agree with you, though. I mean, all jokes aside, the Spurs are the team to watch because they're going to compete at a high level. They have these young pieces that don't know anything but 100 miles per hour, and that's going to be fun. Seeing them figure out their guard rotation under a new head coach is going to be fun. What do they do with Castle and Fox? And they have Harper when he's healthy, who's going to demand some attention with the ball and offensively as well. What do they do with a guy like Carter Bryant, who's going to be just an absolute dog? Carter Bryant on the All Juice team for a reason. That is an archetype that I love to watch. And of course, they are must-see TV. Derek not making a bold prediction here. We will do bold predictions, though, on Monday, so make sure you're ready for that. But when you look at the Spurs, they also are must-watch because of how their ceiling and floor sits right now to me. They could be a team that in the regular season, I'm not saying that this will be the case in the postseason, but in the regular season, they could win enough games if they get the right health to disrupt the bracket, to push a team down in the standings and create some inconsistent matchups. For example, they could be a team that leaps to the 3, 4, 5 line somewhere in there and get someone else an easier matchup or a harder matchup. They also could be a team that's like, yeah, they dealt with some injuries. They had to figure some things out of how to work off of each other, and they ended up in the play-in game. It could go so many different ways that you just want to watch how it unfolds. And then selfishly, I mean, Christmas Day is going to be awesome in OKC. They're going to have these matchups where every time that him and Chet share the floor together, it's must-see TV. Wemby, of course, is must-see TV in his own right. So I agree with you completely with the Spurs. I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, because I do believe Cooper Flagg is generational. I do believe Cooper Flagg is going to be must-watch, and just seeing how he acclimates himself to the NBA. I do believe that their defense is going to be great, and their defense is going to be enough for them to win games and keep themselves in it to get by without Kyrie Irving. And this all kind of hinges on what does it look like when Kyrie's ready to return? Because it doesn't seem like he's going to be back before the All-Star break. So now you're pushing it back to post-All-Star break, perhaps to March. And will this defense, an offense that I think is going to have to grind it out, it's going to have to win games on the back of their defense and win games in a early aughts fashion with a low-scoring affair. Can they stay afloat? until Kyrie's back. And then when you get Kyrie back, that's typically when rookies hit the rookie wall. However, for Cooper in particular, not only is he good enough to transcend a rookie wall, but midway through the season, when the book is out on you, your life gets a lot easier if you're fully healthy at that time with Kyrie and AD, which are two big ifs. But it makes his life easier for the stretch run of that season and changes how he can play. So I think that the Mavericks are just a must-watch team just to see how it comes together. And they're another team like the Spurs, although they have a more dramatic, they're like the Sixers in this way. They have a more dramatic ceiling and floor, because if this guard rotation, which looks shaky at best right now without Kyrie Irving, if it falls flat on its face and their identity of leaning into their big men playmaking more doesn't facilitate an even passable offense, they could crater down the standings and it'd be a lost cause by the time Kyrie is ready. But if you get a healthy AD, and if you can reinvent how to play make and how to facilitate an offense through your big men and allow AD to take the load of that with Cooper Flag, then they could be hitting their stride right when Kyrie is back, and they could be one of those spunky teams that comes alive at the end of the year. I mean, you look at the way we talked about Indiana pre and post January 1st. I'm not saying that they'll have that much of an extreme and that they'll have that much luck, because part of that is playing in the West. Like, they're going to have brutal matchups wherever they finish if they get to the playoffs. But they can be a totally new team by the time that the playoffs get here. So I do have the Mavericks. Are you interested in the Mavericks at all?
100%. For the reason that you touched on, that floor and ceiling is one of the widest in the NBA, truly. Like, if you just ran me through their starting lineup right now, and let's assume at some point Kyrie makes his way back. Kyrie, Clay, Cooper Flag, AD, Derek Lively. I would tell you that's one of the best starting fives in basketball, truly. Like, that's a really, really, really good starting five. And then they've got some depth beyond that. Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Gafford, good basketball team. But when you fold in the fact that obviously dealing with injuries, Kyrie might not make it back. He might make it back late. AD, obviously, historically, we don't need to touch on that. A few others here and there. They're ingratiating the number one pick in the NBA draft. So they're going to have to toe the line between let him loose and also try to develop him into a legitimate star alongside these guys. That's not easy to do. And then you fold in the fact that they're playing in maybe the best the Western Conference has literally ever been. There's just so many question marks. So there's such a wild card. I think that the ceiling is probably like the 4 seed in the West, and the floor could be Kyrie comes back later than we think. AD has his typical injury here and there. Cooper has a tougher time assimilating than we think, and they end up the 12 seed, the 11 seed. Like, it's that wide. And then there's room for everything in between. So certainly one of the more fun teams to watch. I think regardless of what happens, whether they're good, medium, or bad, they are going to be, as we've said, must-watch TV. You know, Cooper Flag, to your point, I don't know if I'd say generational, but pretty much as reliant as a number one pick could be of his stature. So, yeah, really, really interested in this roster.
Yeah, and you look at Cooper Flag, you look at the Mavericks, they're going to be fascinating because, I mean, it could go bad, and it could go really bad, because what if not only the teams we're expecting to be good are good, but what if, like, the Trailblazers do put it all together and do have a spunky year like they did last year and improve upon that? And what if the Kings, who I've written off the Kings. I know it's
you personally, you're it, buddy. This is Kings land right here. We're sitting.
Listen, I'm staying strong anti-Kings, which sounds,
talk about a bold take.
Well, it sounds controversial, because hold on now, partner. I've embraced the Sixers. I've embraced the Suns. I have disowned the Kings. I am fully out on the Kings. I think the Kings are going to be dreadful. But what if they're not? What if they have enough veterans to win more games than a depleted Dallas team if they do hit the road with injuries? What if New Orleans finally gets a stroke of luck with health, which I don't think that they will, but what if they do? Like, you could see the Mavericks really tumble if this doesn't go perfectly. But you could also see the Mavericks accelerate into contention status if it does go perfectly. So I just want to see how it all pans out with Jason Kidd, who I think almost underrated coach at this point. I mean, he's gone to the finals. He's gone to the West Finals twice. I mean, he's really proven to be a good coach with Dallas. He has a new coaching staff around him, and they're trying to reinvent themselves. How quickly can they do that? Speaking of teams who are different and who I think is a solidified contender, obviously, the Denver Nuggets are must-watch TV for me. Cam Johnson's my guy. I've planted my flag on Cam Johnson Island. It's one of the few islands that is not decrepit right now that I have stock in and I have real estate on. But him playing off of Jokic, how quickly those two guys can get on the same page is going to be fascinating. And Cam has talked about this already this week of how different it is to play next to Jokic and how you don't expect him to be able to find you and pass you the ball in certain places on the floor in relation to Jokic, and he does. And he's had to study Christian Brown of like, how do you do this? How do you play off of a guy like Jokic? And I think that Cam Johnson is an upgrade to Michael Porter Jr. I just do. But the one thing that he can't replicate from Michael Porter Jr. is the time. You don't get time back in this life, and you can't accelerate it either. And he's going to have one season to get all of that chemistry figured out, whereas Michael Porter Jr. had years and years and years to work off of Jokic. So I want to see that dynamic. I want to see what he can do, not only just being a spot-up shooter off of Jokic, but putting the ball on the deck more and setting Jokic up better than a guy like Michael Porter Jr. could. I think will help this Nuggets team. And the bottom line is, I think that for Dallas, for Denver and Oklahoma City, you only have a pass to lose to each other. If you're Denver and you lose to OKC, man, that's tough, but it is what it is. If you're Oklahoma City and you lose to Denver, okay, that was the one team that probably should have beat you. That probably has the ability to beat you. If they lose to anybody else in the postseason, it's bad news. It's really bad news. So I want to see how they handle that as well. And I just love this Denver roster. Love watching Jokic. Love watching Shea. And so like Denver being in relation to Lockdown Thunder, the Thunder's top competition will be fun to follow. And then we both had the same last team. So I'm going to concede my last team to you and let you expound upon them. But it's obviously fair to put Denver in the must-watch category, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to be a better basketball team this year. I think that, like you said, it's them and the Thunder currently in the West. I think the Rockets have somewhat exited that tier, at least to your earlier point from like a postseason perspective. Is a men or Reed at the one really, really going to win you like an NBA championship over these two? Probably not. So I agree. I think Denver's a really, really good team. It's also essentially the last iteration of like this era of Jokic Nuggets, basically, right? I mean, Jamal Murray's contract, I can't see anybody like shelling out and really swapping straight across talent for that. You know, they've done a good job at the draft, but Aaron Gordon's getting older. Cam Johnson is on the older side. So this feels like Jokic's last, like this roster could last a while, but it's the last hurrah with this iteration, this era of Denver. So that's fun. See what they got. And then our last team, as you touched on, we both had them, the Atlanta Hawks. And I know that this is no hot take. This is no new original thought. A lot of people like the Hawks offseason. They were tagged as offseason winners for their trade with New Orleans. They got that 2026 first. They went and got KP, Kristaps Porzingis. They signed Gilgeous-Alexander Walker. But we simply can't write this off as like, oh, they got better. This is a dang good team. Like truly. Trae Young didn't have a great season last year. I expect him to bounce back in some capacity. Dyson Daniels proved himself as one of the best defensive players in the league. Jalen Johnson continues to be a rising star, wasn't able to stay healthy, but really, really expect him to be the perfect modern NBA 3. Kristaps Porzingis, Trae Young has never had a player like him that can pick and pop, that can extend beyond the perimeter, but also really, really good, as he showed with the Boston Celtics in his tenure there, on the interior. He can shot block. He can score around the rim with touch. Really underrated player if he's able to stay healthy. Truly does like star level things in like a role player type package. And then they've got this built out depth in Okongwu, Kennard, as I touched on, Riza Shea is the number 1 overall pick a year ago. A guy who really impressed me. You know, I didn't have him as my number 1 pick, but he came in, played really, really well. You know, they drafted Asa Newell. They've got Vít Krejci. He's on the roster here. So just a really, really fun team. I think they're going to put things together. I don't know that they'll necessarily jump to contender status, but they're going to be a lot better than the Atlanta Hawks that we've known and not so loved in the last few years.
Yeah, and I do think this is Trae Young's last chance to really put it all together as a star. And of course, he has a contract decision coming up with the Hawks, but I think that they've passed every test this offseason as a front office. And it dates back to even previous off seasons. Like Dyson Daniels is the perfect backcourt mate for Trae Young. Gilgeous-Alexander Walker is the quintessential role player. Kristaps Porzingis has such a high ceiling to elevate this team, but also Jalen Johnson being healthy this year, who was on an all-star trajectory prior to being hurt, in January last year, I think can help the Hawks in a big way, especially playing in the Eastern Conference. So this is just a glimpse at who we think are the most fun teams to watch. But the thing about the NBA is there are teams that we didn't even mention that are going to be must-see TV. And this league is so rich with talent and storylines that it is in a great spot. And you look at Luke saying that the Trailblazers are a true wild card. I totally agree. I can't wait to watch the Trailblazers play basketball. I can't wait to see what happens in New Orleans. Like, if they're healthy, if they're not. I think that New Orleans had a dreadful offseason, but they still have talent. So I'm really curious about that. But Derek, every single week, we're handing out technical fouls. Luckily, the comment section did not receive a technical foul today.
They survived. There's still
time. But don't you worry out there. There's an ability for you to get texts as well with your comments. But who is your first ever technical foul? Not named Ben Taylor, because you did put one out there earlier.
So my very first technical foul goes to the San Bruno Police Department. I've got an AP article pulled up. California police pull over a self-driving Waymo for an illegal U-turn, but they can't give it a ticket because no one's in the car. So this is the point we're at in society. Cars are driving themselves around, doing illegal things. The police can't dole out tickets. No one's driving. So San Bruno Police Department, you've been teed up.
That's a technical foul.
That's attack on the police department. It sounds like a Seinfeld bit, honestly. Have a self-driving car, get pulled over, and you're just stuck there. Like, what are you supposed to do? I would be curious what the infraction is. Because I don't know about you, Derek. I'm not going to be in a self-driving car. I'm just not going to do it. I will resist that for as long as possible. They're going to have to pry the keys out of my cold, dead fingers before I jump in a self-driving car. Because stuff like this can happen. If the self-driving car was so bad at driving that the police had to flicker the lights and pull it over, then can you imagine what it's possible of doing malfunction-wise? And driving already is a dangerous game. You got to be really cautious. Got to pay attention. Got to be ready and able to make quick decisions. And I'm not all in on this AI robot nonsense. I want a driver. I want a driver, a veteran, a person who at least I can then blame somebody. Let's say that the driving car gets in an accident. Lord, hopefully not. Who do you blame? Who do you get mad at? To me, get mad at yourself. Why in the world are you hopping in a self-driving car? That's just beyond idiotic to me.
Let me hit you with the first few graphs here.
Go ahead. Give me the nut graph.
In San Francisco, police in Northern California
San Francisco.
I'm going to move on. We're understandably perplexed when they pulled over a Waymo taxi after it made an illegal U-turn, only to find no driver behind the wheel and therefore no one to ticket. The San Bruno Police Department wrote in a now viral weekend social media post that officers were conducting a DUI operation early Saturday morning when a self-driving Waymo made the illegal turn in front of them. Here's the kicker. Officers stopped the vehicle but declined to write their ticket as their, quote, citation books don't have a box for a robot.
I mean, listen, first of all, we should be giving them tickets because somebody controls these robots. There's a company out there that controls these robots. They should be ticketed because you put a product out there that made things illegal happen and transpire in this country. And we used to be a proper society that if you did the time, if you did the crime, you got to do the time. And this Waymo robot deserves a ticket. And the powers that be at Waymo deserve to pay the ticket. And robots should never get a warning because it's a slippery slope. You start to give robots an inch and you start to warn them of things, they take a mile. And shame on San Francisco. Shame on the places that have these self-driving cars. I'll tell you who doesn't have self-driving cars. Latin Oklahoma, Latin America, God's country. We drive our own damn cars in Latin America. So don't ever, word of advice from Uncle Rye, don't ever get in a self-driving car because you never know what can happen. What if that robot, who has a mind of its own apparently, and his AI mind, just decides, you know what? Let's go 150 miles an hour. Why not? What's to stop it? You know how many times your phone messes up and your computer messes up? Those mess ups are annoying. These mess ups from Mr. Waymo, life-altering, threatening, possible death to you. All because you didn't want to wait for Billy Bob, who drives a Toyota Accord, to come pick you up. Give me a break. Get in a Corolla, get in a Ford F-150, get in a Honda Santa Fe, and go about your day. Don't be leaning on these robots. The second we become dependent on robots is the second we lose our soul. That's what I'll say. And Waymo, you know what? Second tee. Waymo's out of here. I never want to hear about Waymo ever again on Locked On Thunder and in my presence because I am out on Waymo. I will never have a self-driving car. That is ridiculous. And let me tell you something else. If you can't take the commute, you shouldn't go on it. If you need a self-driving car because you got so much work to do, you have so many tweets to put out, you have so many conversations to have, don't drive. Don't drive. And if you're, I'm running late and I got to get on this car and go to school, guess what? Should have done your work ahead of time. That way you can actually drive. Because driving is not only meant for humans, driving is almost therapeutic for humans. To have a situation where you should be dialed in, you should be locked in. Perhaps you've got some music playing. Perhaps you have a podcast playing. Perhaps you have something to engage your mind in that way. Or perhaps you're just in your own thoughts. You're a prisoner of your mind and you can figure a lot of stuff out in these commutes. You should not be taking the services of a self-driving car. My technical foul, though, is back to basketball. Ty Lue at Clippers Media Day was asked about Bradley Beal, the new addition. The buyout from Phoenix gets him to the Clippers, and they ship out Norman Powell in the process. They get John Collins in addition. And he was asked what to expect from Bradley Beal. And Ty Lue says he expects Bradley Beal to get back to being, quote, the elite defender he's been in the past, end quote. That's the quote from Ty Lue. Bradley Beal, the elite defender he's been in the past. Ty Lue,
That's a technical foul.
that's your first tech of the season, buddy. That's your first tech of the season. And at the end of the year, Ty, when we tally up how many technical fouls each coach got, you have an additional one from right here on Locked On Thunder, because that is just lying to the public. It's lying to the media. It's lying to Bradley Beal. It's lying to Bradley Beal's family. Bradley Beal has children, and you're lying on his name. He has a family. You think that his kids wants to read a lie about their dad? Could you imagine if someone lied about your father? How you'd feel? It's sickening. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm a podcaster. Don't go after Bradley Beal, who's never been an elite defender in his life, and say he's going to be an elite defender. Because you know what this does, Ty Lue? Mr. Step Over? Mr. Being on your behind, getting stepped over? Mr. Tattoo on J-Dub's leg, Ty Lue? You know what this does, Ty Lue? First time that Bradley Beal misses an assignment defensively, which will happen very often. Let me spoil this for you. I know you're an NBA coach and you're an NBA player, and you know Ty Lue's going to miss assignments, folks, defensively. This quote's brought up. This has added pressure on Bradley Beal. This is undeserved pressure on Bradley Beal, and this will be a laughingstock that Bradley Beal has to pay for alongside Ty Lue for something Bradley Beal didn't do. Ty Lue, technical foul. That's my first tee of Locked On Thunder Live.
I looked up Bradley Beal's collegiate stats. He was a one and done at
Mark Dagnall and
Florida, 2011, 2012. Defensive box plus minus of 2.9.
How about that?
Not elite, not great.
Not elite.
Steal percentage 2.5, block percentage 2.6, pretty good, but nowhere near elite. And he's never been anywhere near elite. And I think we have a literal decade of tape and statistics and really history books, if we're being honest, that point to the fact that Bradley Beal has never been an elite defender and never will be. So I agree with you. I don't know if you want to go on another rant. My fiance's texting me from the other room saying, what has she walked into with the Waymo conversation?
Oh,
she said, I came here for basketball.
Mad Dog Waymo deserves more text, but
she jumped in on that and said, what are we talking about?
I'm glad you're here, Mad Dog. But one more thing on Bradley Beal. We just proved he's not an elite defender in college. Obviously, not an elite defender in the NBA. I'm not even certain that he was an elite defender at Chaminade High School in Missouri. I would guarantee that there are people who played Chaminade High School in Missouri that got buckets over Bradley Beal. And again, this is not a trash Bradley Beal thing. It's a trash Ty Lue thing. I mean, are you kidding me, Derek? I mean, that you're running a marathon soon. You know, and I've been
Half
doing my
marathon.
part. I've been taking walks around the neighborhoods, you know, but back home in Lawton, up here in Oklahoma City. I've been closing some rings recently. I've been on a 20-day streak, no big deal, of closing the rings. But that would be like you saying, I want Rylan Stiles to get back to running marathons. Back to running marathons. Eric, back. Playoffs? We're not back to running marathons. This is just ridiculous from Ty Lue. And it was foreshadowing for what the Clipper season might end up being. Just back to elite defender.
There's times on podcasts and of course this live stream moving forward where my brain just puts words together and throws them out in the hope that people don't realize I'm just blathering. And it doesn't happen often, but I'm starting to wonder if this is what happened to Ty Lue. If his brain just started putting syllables and consonants together and it ended up saying that Bradley Beal used to be an elite defender. Because it's possible he just started throwing NBA jargon together. You know, who's a player on my team? Bradley Beal, Mad Lib style. What is a skill that people have? Defense. Could he get back to
possible.
it? It's possible.
Maybe Ty Lue's just not a riffer. Me personally, I'm a riffer. I can riff on anything. I can make it work. Ty Lue, perhaps you need to stick to a script. And I need to talk to the Clippers PR staff about getting him a script because this was bad. This was really bad from Ty Lue. Ty Lue, though, historically, to bring it back around, pretty good interview. So this was surprising that he
Great
took
coach.
now. Sure. This is surprising that it came back now that he all of a sudden thinks that Bradley Beal will be an elite defender again. And a spoiler alert, Ty Lue, I don't think that year 50 of Bradley Beal is all of a sudden going to make him a great defender. I don't think he has much to improve. Derek, we're going to make our season predictions as the show goes forward. We're going to have the show every Monday and Thursday from now to the end of time at 2 p.m. Central Time here on YouTube, Locked On Thunder Live. We have your comments involved as we did already today. Hope to get more of them even as the show progresses. And this will also be uploaded to Locked On Thunder's podcast feed. If you miss it live, you can also go back and watch it on YouTube. If you miss it live and want to catch back up. So there's plenty for you to do. We also have our 5-day-a-week show on Locked On Thunder, 30 minutes more buttoned up than going on Waymo rants. And we have our post-game recaps as well. You can find Derek and I both on OKC Dream Team. You can find Derek on YouTube, Derek-Parker. You can find Derek on Twitter at DParkOK. You can find me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Derek, any final words for our first ever Locked On Live?
No, this was really fun. I really like getting the comments engaged. I hope to see everybody back here. Dishing out comments. We're going to throw some texts soon.
Oh, we're throwing texts.
I was close on a few today.
Oh, I warned some guys today. That
Yeah.
there was a warning. That someone in there said Topic's going to be a starter. You've got a warning.
That's the exact one. That's the exact one I was thinking.
Yeah, the referee during a dead ball timeout goes over to the coach and says, "Hey, buddy, we've heard you. We got you."
That's a delayed
Relax.
game. That's not tech worthy,
yeah.
but that gives a nice baseline to the viewers here of what we're going to be
sideline
seeing.
warning for Coach
Yeah.
Micah. Coach
Yeah.
Micah, sideline warning.
Mike
Derek.
also had he had some good takes in here though.
Oh yeah, he had great takes, which is why he only got a warning. But that was a take that gets a warning for Micah. Sideline warning there. Next time though, we're gonna ring you with a tech. Derek will be back on Monday, 2 p.m. Central Time, live on YouTube. And as you can already tell from this show, over an hour long, very much so relaxed, very much so a little bit different than what you get every single day. So it's worth tuning into, especially to see and hear Derek Parker talk some ball. Until Monday and until the next episode of Locked On Thunder, which happens with Joe Mazzato on Friday morning, be good and be good to one another.